My name is Ghostboy259, and I played Children of Morta. Developed by Dead Mage, the small indie devs behind the upcoming game Tale of Ronin, and previously Wizard of Legend 2, which has some of the most scathing reviews I've ever seen in any game ever. While I can't speak for those games, I can speak for Children of Morta, a roguelike, best played co-op, but technically single player as well, where you play as the Bergson family, who are trying to defeat the evil of a centuries-long family curse by traveling through portals that are in the dungeon in their basement, or something like that. I do know a little bit about the story, and while I do have positive things to say about it, I also have a major issue with how it was presented, but we'll get to that in a minute. Me and my friend Gundam Fang played this game live on Twitch, so if you want to watch those VODs, you can head to youtube.com/realityescapeplays. If you want to join us in chat the next time we play, you can follow at twitch.tv/ghostboy259. If you want to join the Discord or help support this channel on Patreon, you can find all the links at realityescape.ca. And while you're here, subscribe for a new video every week on a game you've maybe never heard of. Children of Morta is a pixel art styled game where you crawl through dungeons, killing creatures, and trying to make it to the end in order to advance to the boss fight. Throughout the game, you'll have characters unlock with a total of 7 for the base characters, all of which are family members of the Bergsons, except for one, who kind of shows up for no real reason and doesn't do much of anything, which is very weird. I don't know, just make it another cousin or something, at least keep it consistent. Each family member has a different skill tree and a different method of attack, and there's an exhaustion system in the game so that if you use characters multiple runs in a row, they'll get tired and need a run or two off to fully recover. Likewise, characters have abilities that after they hit certain levels, it affects all runs and all family members regardless of whether they're in the run or not. So there is a lot of incentive to play as different characters, which I'm personally a huge fan of. I normally always play as a ranged character, and it's very easy for me to get locked into that and not experience the rest of the game, but I wanted to upgrade a new family member we had just got who was a tank with a massive hammer and get his overall family abilities, and he ended up becoming one of my favorite characters and helped us beat the game. Especially when you're playing this co-op, which again, I think you really should play this co-op over solo. It gets a lot easier to experiment and grind with different characters to see what they can do and what combos work out the best. Characters will start off with a basic attack, and after a few levels you'll get your first ability and later a second, and these abilities can be upgraded via your skill tree. If you unlock a new character, they are still somewhat okay and competent in newer dungeons. They won't be amazing, but they will gain XP really fast, so don't worry too much about having to go backwards to grind and catch everyone up. You can just continue playing as is. Every character will also eventually get Rage, which increases their damage and speed, I think, and also change their attack. I don't exactly know, but basically it makes them better for a short amount of time. However, the meter fills up very, very slowly, and it uses up very, very quickly, and so I just constantly forgot about it or felt like I had to save it for a boss fight that I sometimes would not make it to. Throughout the runs, you'll have lots of items you can pick up, and I'll be completely honest with you, I never really consistently knew the names of these. Some are items that you can use like a consumable, you can have up to and use them at any time, and they have a cooldown. There are some passive effects and some that always stay active, and there's some special ones that it's only a one-time use thing and normally has a dramatic effect with a negative payoff. There's lots of names for these things: runes, relics, altars, charms, graces. I don't know the names for which one is which because you kind of pick them all up the same and you buy them all in the same way, and the game doesn't really try to distinguish them all that much. So eventually it just became, okay, I don't know what this is, but I'm just going to read it and pick it up, and I'll figure out what kind of item it is later. Throughout the run, you'll also get gemstones. These are used to open chests, which have buffs or sometimes just a lot of money in there. And there's a shop every now and then where you can spend gemstones to buy specific items, but they're a little more costly. These also don't carry over from run to run, so you might as well use them when you have them. It's a lot of information and parts to remember, and I think we were probably 8 hours into our 14-hour playthrough to figure out exactly what everything did, and even when we did eventually figure it out, we never really knew what it was called. I think one of my biggest complaints, or maybe less of a complaint and more of a letdown with the game, is that my builds very rarely synergized with one another. Sometimes they did, sometimes I would get something that would make my rage better and make my rage meter fill up more, but more often than not, it was just several different abilities that never really meshed with each other. And I think in games like this, I really like this idea of things connecting to build something. If I get one ability that gives me more evades, I would love something where my evades maybe do damage, or maybe I can stun enemies or something. If I get a reusable item that drains away my health for some bonus effect, what if I got another buff that made losing health even more powerful? I'm sure these combos exist, but there is such a wide variety of things that these items can alter, and there's maybe one or two that alter each thing, so it doesn't really happen all that often that you get two items that actually feel like they work together. And for me, I just would love for something like that, because you have those moments like a Slay the Spire or other roguelikes where you're like, wow, this is a great build, I really want to make this one work. And the one time it did noticeably happen is actually one of the times we beat one of the bosses in the game, because I basically said, we have to make sure we do this, I'm never going to get a build this nice again. During runs, you collect Morve, and you can use these at home base to upgrade things like armor, health, attack speed, movement speed, crit rate, all the fun stuff. There's also a separate book that increases things like rate drops, XP gain, and the effectiveness of these consumable items, and you can find animal treats throughout the dungeons to give to these animals, which also give you boosts. There's normal animal treats and rare animal treats. The game never tells you what either of these do. I don't know if there's a difference, but these aren't permanent, so you'll have to keep feeding the animals treats to get them their effects, but you probably won't run out. There's plenty. In the basement of the house, there are 3 portals, and each portal has multiple sections. One section will have somewhere between 2 to 4 floors, and at the end you'll encounter some sort of boss fight that you need to beat in order to unlock the next area. The boss fights are okay, they just kind of involve more dodging than your typical fights, but they do feel challenging enough that you will lose to them a few times and you'll feel good when you finally beat them. Can't ask for much more than that. Although I will say the final boss we beat on the first try, which was a little bit of a letdown, and I was kind of hoping for something more, but by that point I was happy to have the game done. Funny enough, the normal enemies you encounter are typically a lot harder just because of the pure numbers that they come in. There's tons of things shooting projectiles at you, and there's ton of things like grids that just pop out of nowhere, or they create poison below you, or when you kill one, 5 more appear. And then there's supercharged evil minions, and they become more powerful. There's enough challenge here that you will definitely die a few times, and while I do love the art style, it can sometimes be very hard to tell what is what at times. My chat was making the joke that I was intentionally moving into projectiles because I just couldn't tell what was shooting me. Visually, I do love like 99% of the artwork. There's just the occasional moment where it really stands out in a weird way, like it's a part of a different pixel art game. I can't really describe it, maybe you can if I just show you. But I think for a game like this, to have characters running around these very detailed areas, and for the characters to still stand out and not in a bad way, and not get lost within the background, it's really nice. It's seriously some of the nicest pixel art I've ever seen in a game, and the character design is all fantastic, and going into a new environment feels pretty nice. Some of the animations are genuinely very impressive, and nothing within the game stands out negatively. It's just a couple of things in the cutscenes where I know what they're trying to do, it just feels like it doesn't quite fit the aesthetic of everything else. As for the story, I do have a major issue with its presentation. First off, I like the idea of the family. There's this overarching story where you learn more about their past and history as more family members join the battle, and there's cutscenes that play after almost every run, so even if you don't succeed or feel like you're progressing, you're actually still getting something with the story, and I really like that because it makes you feel like everything you do is still building up to something, although I do wonder if you're really good how much story you actually miss. Here, in that lies the problem. There are cutscenes that play throughout the house that you can click on, and bigger ones that you have to select to trigger, but you and your co-op partner are not sharing a screen when you're not in a dungeon. So if you're playing with someone, you will watch cutscenes at different times. I've already talked on this channel before about co-op games that are really gameplay oriented, having too much story that forces you and the person you're in a call with to be quiet for long periods of time, as most people will not absorb any of that whatsoever. But adding the element of not even getting the cutscenes at the same time is very, very strange. Unless we counted down to start the cutscene at the same time, we just were not looking at the same thing at the same time, and so it was harder for us to talk about it. We also found out that our home bases weren't synced up and that some characters were in different rooms when we were on the screen at the same time, so confidently we didn't even know we were seeing the same cutscene half the times. The story I actually did retain is quite good. There's a lot of family history, and there's some child sacrifice, and it gets kind of dark, but it's a little uplifting at the same time, and there's a lot of names you won't remember at the end. It's clearly well thought out, and it's easy enough for you to grasp main concepts even if you only catch little tidbits, and I was surprised by the end how much I was actually able to remember. Like, I could name everyone in the family and their relation to one another, and I'm also the same kind of guy where I watched 7 seasons of a show and I never learned someone's name. But in a game where the co-op is so much better than the single player experience, it's not ideal to be desynced from your partner for these big elements. After you finish the game, you'll have family trials, basically an endless mode where you can play through dungeons over and over again, having to complete tasks like collecting something or killing a certain enemy. We only did one run and one half of run because there's this weird exclusive character who only appears in this mode, and I have no idea who he is or what he's on about. I can't say this really appealed to me. The base game I thought was the perfect amount of gameplay. I thought I experienced pretty much all I could there, but it was interesting nonetheless to experience. And if you and a buddy really like this game, then there's plenty more for you to do. You can just grind away at this. Of course, I had a buddy. I didn't play this on my own. I played this with my friend Gundam Fang, so here's what he had to say.
Children of Morta was a fun experience. The vibe was on point, a constantly worsening scenario and a family coming together to handle it. Like a group of small candles desperately trying to hold back the dark. The gameplay is fun. I like that each character felt distinct, and us trying to find pairings caused us to play different archetypes than we normally do. The dungeons had a good length as well, although it does feel like this is very much a game for 2. I can't imagine this being anywhere near as fun solo, which sadly made the asynchronous cutscenes very jarring. We experienced the gameplay together, but the story separate. Very fitting. I only have a second complaint. The introduction of a character outside the family and who is rarely referred to afterwards was odd. It felt like we should have gotten Mary, the mother, as a playable character in the last act of the game instead. While it might have been a little odd to have a mother with a newborn suddenly go dungeon diving, this is a game with magic in it, and it wasn't afraid to jump forward a bit with its timeline, so there were options. If you're looking for a fun game to spend some time dungeon diving in with a friend, Children of Morta is a good choice.
All in all, I think Children of Morta is definitely a game better played co-op than single player, but it is a fun game worth playing if you like these more grindy types of games. We never failed a level more than 5 times. The story, if you're interested in that, is always progressing and moving forward, and the gameplay itself is pretty fun with lots of different family members and styles to try, and even if you like playing the same people over and over again, they're always getting new abilities and skill points to keep things fresh. And even though the endless mode did not appeal to me personally, I'm always a really big fan of the addition. Bonus points if you play this game and you can constantly keep track of how you're related to your co-op partner, because I definitely could not. For now, my name is Ghostboy259 and I played Children of Morta. Next time, I'll play something else. Thanks for watching.